So this might be controversial, but I would argue that the biggest winner of this debate was Hillary Clinton. And the reason why I think that she's the biggest winner is because despite what I know about policy ideas and despite the candidate that I support, who's Bernie Sanders, I think that for the average American watching this, maybe an American who doesn't know about all these different policy ideas, they're going to look at both portions of this town hall and just assume that Hillary is better versed in being a leader. And the reason why I say that, and Wes disagrees with me, which is why I think this is controversial, the reason why I think that is because Bernie went first. Bernie was questioned by Bernie was questioned by Chuck Todd, and the line of questioning was difficult. And for the majority of time, Bernie Sanders had to defend himself, right? And so as a result, for someone who doesn't dig deeper into the policy ideas, they're going to just see Bernie as this defensive guy who might not be ready to be a leader. On the other hand, you have Chris Matthews, who's very supportive of Hillary Clinton, moderating her portion of the town hall and asking her very simple questions, if you ask me. And as a result, I think that people are going to look at that and they're going to think, okay, well, she seems like she knows what she's doing. She was asked a few tough questions about foreign policy. Maybe she's a better leader than Bernie. I think that's what the perception is going to be. You disagree with me.
You're completely wrong. Listen, I didn't support either candidate before I came in. I watched it. I'm like, fucking Bernie's the man.
But do you?
No, and let me tell you why. Tell you why. Okay, watching it, he didn't flub a single question.
He flubbed the question about the Wall Street employees.
He
a little bit.
He didn't at all. He didn't miss a single beat to explain his ideas. He didn't let himself get bullied around by the moderator in terms of trying to change the framing on it. And when I heard his answers, I heard authentic answers from someone who knew about the subjects they were talking about and gave really direct responses. When I heard Clinton's answers, first of all, she bombed those foreign policy questions hard. Like, you could look at her text afterwards and someone who didn't watch it could say, oh, she did pretty good. But if you watch it, you thought she bombed. And not just that, Clinton's answer to every single question, what they all had in common was, it felt like someone said, I asked for a 5-page paper and you need to give me 5 pages.
Yeah.
Because every answer was incredibly long, that halfway through it, and also not very specific.
Okay.
So through every answer, I'm thinking, oh man, what the fuck? What were you talking about? What's her position on that? And you could say, well, she smiled at the reporter, and he smiled back, so the audience is going to say she won. But in the presentation of the facts and how they handled it, it wasn't even close, in my opinion.
So I want the audience to understand, and also you to understand, that in terms of what they said, yes, I agree that Bernie's the winner. I mean, he got into his policy ideas. It was very in-depth. He was asked the most challenging questions, and he handled them with grace. And I think that with intelligence and grace. And I think that, the Wall Street question, I only say that he flubbed it because there was this kid who asked him, like, hey, you know what? I want to work for Wall Street, and you seem to be against them. Well, like, what are you going to do? Am I going to not have that opportunity?
Yes.
He framed the answer in a way that made it seem like, well, if that kid wants to be a Wall Street guy, then he's not going to have the opportunity, which isn't true. But look, Wes,
no, you're right. Bernie should have said, listen, you're always going to have the opportunity to exploit the ignorant in life. Don't worry. Don't worry, kid.
No,
get out there and take some money.
I think he should have run up and punched that kid in the face.
Okay, but I don't want to get off on that tangent. What I want to do is respond to what you said. And look, you are a foreign policy nut, Wes. Okay, so you pay attention to those answers. You care about those answers. You want to know what those policy ideas are. I'm talking about the average American. Average American is going to watch that, I guarantee you, and they're going to see a defensive old man. Oh my God, this guy doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing. And then they're going to see Hillary sitting there, cool as a cucumber, because she's not being challenged.
I don't even think Bernie felt that defensive. I felt he confidently responded to a guy who obviously came off as a prick.
Okay, if you don't believe me, let me go to one of the questions. Bernie was asked, so how are you and Donald Trump kind of the same? Like, what makes you guys different? Let's go to video number 2.
So if you're a Trump supporter, let's say you're a 50-year-old guy, and your job went to China, you know what? You're really angry because now you have a job that maybe pays you 50 or 60% of what you used to have. You can't afford to send your kid to college. You are angry. And meanwhile, you're seeing almost all new wealth and income go into the top 1%. An issue you guys should talk about a little bit more as well.
Right.
All right?
Fair enough.
All right. You're angry. And then Trump comes along and says, you know what? You're angry. You should be angry. It's the fault of the Muslims. It's the fault of the Mexicans. Well, problem is that is racism, that is xenophobia, and it has nothing to do with the real causes of the problem. So what I say to the Trump supporters, I say, look, do you understand that Donald Trump thinks that the $7.25 an hour minimum wage is as high as should go? And they'll say, really? That's a starvation wage. I say, did you hear Trump on a national Republican debate where he said wages in America are too high? Really, too high? That Trump believes that climate change is a hoax emanating from China? Really? No kidding. That's pretty crazy. That Trump wants to give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to billionaire families like himself? I didn't know that. In other words, it is not just that I think we will defeat Trump because the American people do not think we should be divided up. This guy has insulted Mexicans, Muslims, women. He's insulted veterans. John McCain, a war hero. The American people are not going to vote for somebody like that.
So look, he handled that question perfectly, right? But the fact that he had to answer that question and show that he and Trump are different is ridiculous, because that puts this idea in the voters' minds that, hey, you know what? Maybe this guy is similar to Trump. That scares me. I don't want someone who's even remotely similar to Trump.
Or maybe Trump's not so crazy after all. Maybe he's just blustery, but he's got the same ideas as Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
So maybe I shouldn't be afraid of Trump.
I don't know. Maybe it was my perception, and maybe my perception's wrong. I'm just worried because he seemed like he had to defend himself while Hillary got to just enjoy a moderator that complimented her and giggled with her and gave her softball questions.
I mean, you're not even exaggerating for the first 15 minutes of it. He was giggling.
Yeah.
He was giggling, he's smiling, and he's just putting his hand. It was like they were hanging out, and they might get ice cream later. They might. That's possible.
I've had tougher questions on first dates.
Yeah, I made a joke about it. I think that he'll get the second date. I think.
Look at us thinking
and we're
alike,
gonna have to tune in next week to see if she'll give him a rose. I don't know.
How?
I'm a bit between you two, leaning more towards Wes, I think. Yes. I mean, because I think you're both right. I think that people watching the Hillary section are not going to question her as a candidate based on what they see tonight, except perhaps if they still feel strongly about Iraq, which hopefully a lot of people do, because I don't want people to forget the lessons that we took so many years and so many thousands of lives to learn. But I think the people watching Bernie, assuming that they're more interested in what Bernie says than what Chuck Todd says, and I hope to God that that's what's true, they will learn that he is looking out for people like them. And he kept coming back to that over and over and over.
They say to Chuck Todd say to Bernie, "Oh, you're a one-issue candidate, right?" Which is just repeating the other. It's just ridiculous, repeating bullshit talking points. Him not also revealing that he doesn't understand that the one issue is tied inextricably to every other issue. That's why all the other issues are happening, because we have money in politics.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because our democracy has been hijacked by the plutocrats. Like, you don't understand this? You haven't read any books or anything lately about people talking about the economy? So it's funny that they would say to Bernie Sanders, "You're a one-issue candidate." But do you think Chris Matthews would ever say to Hillary Clinton, "You know, they say Bernie Sanders is a one-issue candidate, but you're a no-issue candidate"? Like, what is your issue?
Yeah,
he would never say, "What is your issue?" She doesn't have an issue. And it's obvious, listening to her, there is no reason for her to want to be president. She just wants to be president because she wants to be president, because she thinks that she's got it coming, like Jeb Bush had it coming, and she thinks it's going to be cool because she'll be the first woman. And that's me reading into what her motivation is, because there doesn't seem to be a motivation for her. It's obvious what Bernie Sanders' motivation is.